Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be showing you the Apollo Intensa Emozione in Asphalt 9 multiplayer. These races were given to me by C22Raptor, who you may remember as doing some of those funny videos made from sounds I've made during my streams and things like that. I will put a link to his channel in the description, of course. He is testing this car at 2 stars. Obviously, the reason why I'm not testing this car myself is because, well, it is the Legend Pass car, which is kind of unfortunate because I really wanted to get this car in this game, given that it was such a good car in Asphalt 8, really an iconic car for the Asphalt series at this point. And especially considering that it has this really cool purple decal. I would have loved to get this one, but I'm sticking with my principle of just seeing how much I can do in this game without spending real money in it. Unfortunately, that does mean I am completely locked out of the Bugatti DIVO'S special event because you can't even play the first day of that if you don't have this car right here. So you may think, okay, you can buy the Legend Pass for this car if you're okay with doing that, and then get the Divo without a problem. Probably not, because you also require some nearly maxed, if not completely maxed, other cars, like the Chiron and the Regera, which ironically are better cars than the Divo is. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to pull with that. It's like the only way you can get this car is if you already have something better. Kind of a weird dynamic, but I digress. The Apollo IE is a new high-end B-class car, and it was thought by many, including myself, to quite possibly be the new king of the class. Now, that did not turn out to be the case, being beaten by the Huracan, I believe, on a majority of tracks. I've seen some tests about that. Now, in this race, C22Raptor beats this Vanda, which is actually a card that I managed to unlock recently. Mine is only at 2 stars, so I don't expect it to be all that great in multiplayer, but I do know that a lot of people who bought the Bugatti Divo packs probably got these cars at relatively low stars, so it might be worth making a video about it, as well as quite possibly the Carrera GT and the CX-75, also cars that I unlocked the Carrera GT. I already had the Jaguar at 1 star, but I managed to 3-star it. That car holds the title of being the worst accelerating car in Class B. Yeah, the GT by Citroën is the second worst. That car is the worst. It only has a 75 acceleration at max, which is quite bad for its class. And, well, I don't expect it to do all that great in multiplayer. But we'll have to see. So coming up is a place on this Rome track which I have been trying to get better at over time. It's this route over to the right, and here you can see C22Raptor do it pretty much flawlessly, at least in my eyes. I did it recently in my video about the GT by Citroën, I believe. I'm not exactly sure whether it gives more of an advantage if you're in slower cars or in faster cars. I believe it's in faster cars, but in slower cars it still does, I believe, give you a better time on the track. And Apex won this race, but the Apollo did beat a pretty much maxed out Porsche 911 GT3 RS, which is a card that I did unlock during the DS3. However, at 1 stars, well, I was doing some tests in it, and it doesn't seem to be that good. The thing is, it only goes 206 miles per hour, which is still better than that Turbo 4 GT Mark II's like 200. I still can't get over that. But I know that many people either unlocked or start up that car during the Drive Syndicate, so I definitely do want to make a video about it. Now, this Apollo IE, at 2 stars, how good is it really? Well, it can go 219 miles per hour, which is faster than the likes of the Corvette, for example, but it's not as fast as the Huracan, which goes 222. So you're at a speed disadvantage behind what is widely considered to be the best multiplayer car in its class. So you probably won't be beating a whole lot of Huracans when you are in a lower ranked Apollo IE. The Corvettes will probably be easier targets given that the Apollo is faster than them at 2 stars, and, well, the acceleration is also better on the Apollo as well. I believe 78 versus the Corvette 77. Now you have to keep in mind though, the Corvette does have better handling and better nitro efficiency, so a max Corvette is probably still better than a lower star Apollo in multiplayer, but not by a whole lot, and you can probably beat them a lot of the time. Here, C22 was actually able to almost catch up to this Huracan and beat him in this race, so this really shows that even this car here, which doesn't have as good of attributes, I mean, it's even below 3000 rank, it still has good enough stats overall that if you're able to continue to drive well throughout all the races, oftentimes you will still be able to come in a good position in them. I probably will still try to make another video about this car at 4 or 5 stars too, just to see how it performs at higher ranks in normal multiplayer, because I did make the video about this car's its own multiplayer season with the max free try, but even with that, I always like to test it again, or at least show someone else testing it in normal multiplayer, because the dynamic can be quite different. Because in those max free try multiplayer seasons, the real main focus, at least for me, has always been to just get really accustomed to the car itself and just try to learn it well enough that I can beat other people who are using the same car, because it's all the same car in those. Now, when you're a normal multiplayer, it's less so much about learning the car itself and more about, okay, how does it really compare to all the other cars that you'll find in multiplayer? Because ultimately, that's the most important test, not how it does against a bunch of cars like itself, which, of course, is really good for skilled, competitive races and everything. So it really just depends what kind of video or what kind of racing you were looking for at the time. And I like to cover both bases wherever I can. So in this race, we come in second to this Huracan, but do beat cars like the Apex and the F1LM and the Avia. All these really high-end B-class cars, the Apollo can beat even at lower stars. It's just not going to be easy. But of course, not being easy does not mean impossible. It just means it'll probably take a little bit more time and effort to be able to do. And it looks like C22Raptor has figured out pretty well how to drive this car. Some other Asphalt 9 videos I've got coming up in the near future would be one about my newly 4-starred Koenigsegg Jesko in the Ghost season. The Ghost season is really good for high-end S-Class cars because you don't have to worry about constantly bumping into people when you're trying to get past them, and bumping like this as well, which is always kind of annoying, I know. It's happened to me multiple times as well. But yeah, we've got that, as well as a video about the Onyx multiplayer season. The Onyx is a very interesting car to me. I find it to be a lot of fun to drive. It's fairly similar, actually, to the Valhalla, I feel, at max. It's not quite as fast, but a lot of its other stats are just so good. It still goes 239 miles per hour at max, which is really good for A-class. I mean, it's definitely in the top 5 or 10 or whatever of speeds in the class. So that's a video I'm definitely looking forward to making. I've got some great races in that season. And we come in second place again here to a Huracan. Again, just barely though. You'll see a lot of these races are very close. Beating also an Enzo, a Corvette, as well as a Huracan. Now we're on to Nevada against a Carrera GT, Corvette, and Huracan, some of the most popular cars around this rank. I'm pretty sure you'll start seeing a lot more cars like, well, the Carrera and the Vanda, just because a lot of people, I think, probably managed to unlock them or star them up to a point where they will be more competitive in multiplayer given the recent packs. These last couple of races in the video will be on Nevada. It's always really interesting to see how a new car does on a newer track against some of the older kings, because sometimes they could really shake some things up a bit. Like, for example, with the BMW i8 being one of the kings on Nevada along with the Elise. Well, before, we would have only really had the Elise on there, which is a lower top speed car, but now we get a higher top speed one that is still really good because its other stats are good enough to deal with this track's, all of its twisty turns and everything like that, which is something that a lot of the other faster D-Class cars can't do. For example, the Furai loses speed really fast on turns and on rough terrain, and the TVR Griffith has a really bad handling, so again, it loses a ton of speed on the turns, and it just wouldn't be able to accelerate fast enough after them, not only due to its acceleration not being all that great, but just its nitro efficiency would not be enough either. So the i8's just a really good, well-rounded car for this track, and I think the IE would be too, having a fairly high top speed at max, faster than the Huracan, I believe, and all of its other stats being pretty good. I mean, you can see, even at 2 stars, its drifting is enough to make it around the turns without much of a problem. I know it's probably even tighter at max. For our final race in the video, let's see how the Apollo IE can do in a rematch on this track. And it's time for me to give my general review about the car. It is one of the better Legend Pass cars. If you are somebody who buys Legend Passes, this is probably a pretty good one to go for, given that it also allows you to begin the DIVO'S special event, which you can probably get some pretty decent rewards from, even if you don't have all the other cars necessary at whatever stars they're necessary to be at in order to actually get the Divo in the end. But I also want to remind people, if you don't have the Legend Pass and so you can't start the DIVO'S special event, you can still play its daily event to get many hundreds of tokens, possibly even 1,000 or more, through playing races in the Regura and the Sharon and the Vanda and the Carrera GT and all of the cars that are being used in the DIVO'S special event. They all give a lot of tokens with them. So that's why even though I spent many thousands of tokens on the packs to unlock the Vanda and the Carrera, I was able to get like 1,500 or so back through that event. So that was pretty cool. And in conclusion of my review about this car, it is one of the best B-class cars. I don't know if it is the king on any tracks, but it is one of the kings on most of them, I would say. And although the Huracan is better than the Apollo on many tracks, you can't actually use the Huracan anymore in B-class Elite, so you'll have to use other cars instead, like the F1LM or this one. After test driving it at max, I can definitely say that it is a pretty well-rounded car in its class. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like the video if you have enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!